Speedrunning. I'm sure you all know what speedrunning is, but if you don't, it's essentially the process of trying to complete something, usually game related, as quickly as possible. And Minecraft has a lot of these. So today I'll be completing some of my own speedruns, my friend Xtron.
Hello.
But before we start, let me set out the rules real quick. No glitches, obviously. We must keep going even if we die, and we must get the item even after the other player completes their speedrun. But that's actually about it for rules. The image in the top right signifies whose POV you're currently watching. The cat is Xtron, and the armored character will be me. For the most part, it was a race to get the block by any means necessary, whether that be via villages, crafting, or natural spawning. I did not stream this, but you can find me on Twitch at TheRealSpiderEye. Same goes for my Instagram. Remember to like, subscribe, and if you saw a way one of us could have completed their speedrun faster, leave a comment. Now, let's begin. The first run was red concrete powder. The crafting recipe for the red powder is 4 sand, 4 gravel, and 1 red dye. The path forward to completion wasn't too complicated from my spawn. I started off on a rocky beach, immediately darting off to a nearby patch of gravel, completing the first step of the recipe. I also took a moment to gather what little wood I would need for the crafting table itself. While Xtron, well, I'll let him say it himself.
I started in a spruce biome, gathering some resources that I thought I would need, such as clay and gravel, but I quickly began to question the crafting recipe and to momentarily look it up. After confirming the recipe, I gathered my necessary wood as well as jumping into the nearest body of water in search for the last of my gravel and sand.
While he was doing that, I took the least efficient route possible, jumping off of a cliff into an ocean, gathering my needed sand and drowning a teeny bit in the process. After scaling the cliff I had just jumped off of, I got exceedingly lucky exploring the nearby forest for only a few seconds before finding a rose bush. I assembled as fast as my little controller would let me, finishing my run in only 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
After getting the sand and gravel with minimal difficulties, I began an expedition to find a rosebush blindly running through the spruce biome looking for anything. I even tried to use a sweet berry, obviously that didn't work, but after a short trek and a lake crossing, I enter a birch biome finding a rosebush and crafting the powder with a total time of 4 minutes and 42 seconds.
The next speedrun? An orange bed. The crafting recipe for an orange bed is either any color bed plus orange dye, or 3 orange wool on top of 3 wooden planks. But rather than only having to craft it like the red concrete, they can also be found as a default bed in acacia villages. Unfortunately, neither of us got lucky enough to spawn near an acacia biome, but I got a nice spawn in a jungle on the edge of the mesa. I began my run as I got some wood for the crafting table and the base of the bed. I also killed my first sheep, getting my first piece of wool.
My run began in a hilly grass biome, darting over to the nearest tree, gathering enough wood for a sword, crafting table, and a base of the bed. At that point, it just became a hunt for sheep and flowers. Finding one nearby and only a few seconds later, I found another flock of sheep, with both yellow and red flowers nearby, completing my orange bed in a whopping 3 minutes exactly.
I, on the other hand, was less fortunate while hunting for the remainder of my wool and flowers, but after a dog growls, it alerted me what I presumed was a nearby sheep. Luckily, that presumption was correct, getting 2 more pieces of wool. With everything else gathered, all that was left was me blindly running through the forest looking for the last ingredient. A rose. Nearly a whole minute later, I stumbled upon one, crafting the orange bed, finalizing my run in a pathetic 5 minutes and 35 seconds. The third run we did is quartz blocks. Unlike the prior ones, this one takes us to another dimension, as it's literally impossible to get naturally spawning quartz blocks anywhere in Minecraft, much less in the overworld. Nor can you get the ingredients necessary to make quartz blocks in the overworld. The items needed to craft a quartz block is just 4 quartz. Not many items, but the steps required to get to the nether require at least the iron stage for a bucket. So we begin. My spawn was nothing special, a sparse jungle's edge biome that I used to gather the wood and stone I would need to gather some iron. I explored out for any real exposed stones such as cliffsides, rocky beaches, and caves. Luckily only a few minutes in, I find a small vein of iron and coal, getting to my bucket reasonably quickly.
My spawn was a tad better, spawning in an acacia biome with a conjoined desert biome. I grab my starting wood from the acacia trees and dart to the desert as quickly as possible. I find some temples and villages in hopes of skipping the Stone Age entirely and getting straight to the bucket. The first temple I visited had the exact amount of iron I needed. I killed the iron golem in an honorable duel, making an iron pickaxe for just in case. With such a promising start, I began exploring for a lava pool, which I luckily found only a minute later. I attempted to do the speedrunning strategy for creating portals, but it didn't work. As you see, I turned some of the lava into obsidian. Thankfully, there's still just enough lava left, but then I died unhonorably to a trident, drowned, knocked me into the lava, returning to spawn.
After excavating the iron from my bucket out of the cliff, I smelled and crafted up, ready to go adventuring out into the ocean. Why would I pick the ocean to explore? You know, the only biome that doesn't have lava lakes? Good question. Anyways, I did pass by a dark oak forest with an ethereal glow that convinced me to explore deeper. The ethereal glow is actually a lava lake. With night all-consuming, I build my portal using a speedrunning-esque strat, fighting off waves of mobs in the process. I only had to leave the area momentarily to gather the flint that I had forgotten. Only a few minutes later, it was complete, and I entered the nether, praying that I don't die immediately by a ghast or any other nasty that the nether may have in store for me.
I respawned, and rather than heading back for the lava lake immediately, I started searching for another village or desert temple. I chose to keep searching for these structures because I was very certain that all my stuff, including the bucket I needed, has been burnt. After regathering some wood from the acacia, I found a new desert temple. Didn't have any iron. Thankfully, the next village I came across had a vengeful iron golem that wanted revenge for his fallen brethren. I dueled him very honorably as well. He dropped just enough iron for a bucket and flint and steel. With the iron gathered, I head back to my portal, finishing it. I go gather the flint to make the flint and steel. With everything in place, I enter the nether. Taking my surroundings, I quickly find a batch of quartz on the ground beneath me. Now, unfortunately, my recording cut out, so I don't actually have footage of me jumping down, mining it, and making the block, but the timer I had in the background during my run concluded at a whopping 24 minutes and 1 second. Just only a little long.
I also spawned into the nether, and Minecraft chose to be kind to me, spawning me in a nether cave, so I didn't have to deal with the ghast or any other real enemies. Lo and behold, across the room was a vein of quartz, which I mined quickly and crafted even quicker into a quartz block, concluding my run. I finished in only 20 minutes and 6 seconds. Now what you've been waiting for. It's the longest and most painful run. Brain Coral Fans. This clip summarizes how it felt pretty well.
Goodness gracious. What a challenge, am I right?
I want to
unlive
myself.
I imagine most of you have never had a piece of coral in your inventory in survival, much less brain coral, and even less likely brain coral fans. I wouldn't blame you either for never having gathered this resource. It has almost no use other than exceedingly advanced auto farms and for decoration. To even find a warm ocean is less than a 1% chance. On top of their rarity and uselessness is the fact that you need a silk touch pickaxe to gather it. With all that in mind, we begin our runs.
I started my run in a mostly useless mesa biome. I ran over to the conjoined desert biome to search for general resources, desert temples, villages, and such. Speaking of desert temples, I found one almost immediately, gathering a small bit of iron from the structure. Next was a village gathering. I started food in a bed. Not too far away from the village was a jungle, where I got my starting wood and also used some of the string I gathered from the desert temple. I made a fishing rod, believing I may be able to fish up a silk touch book, but not even one cycle of fishing did I realize that it was not a viable strategy. So instead, I continued out to the desert once more, finding a pillager outpost that I got a bit too close to, and a desert temple which I looted for a golden apple. One of the resources I knew I needed was iron. I started to jump into a nearby hole to mine some iron with a golden pickaxe, which didn't work because you can't mine iron with a golden pickaxe. Anyway, I decided to keep exploring, stumbling across a few more structures, like a village and another temple, but inevitably getting attracted back to that pillager outpost that nearly had me killed earlier.
My run began rather unusually, by drowning, so I had to start moving quickly. Luckily, I was basically in a spruce biome, so I gathered some wood, made a boat, and started sailing looking for a village. Luckily, just a hop, skip, and a jump away was a small spruce village. To even call it a village is a mild overstatement. It was more of a homestead, a collection of houses with only a single family tending to it. The family consisted of 3 villagers: the mother cartographer, who I later made into a librarian to reroll for Silk Touch, the farmer father, who I used to trade for emeralds, and last, being most certainly the least, was presumably the son, a village idiot being unable to take a job at all. I trapped both the mother and the father to keep them safe while I ravaged their homestead for all the beets and pumpkins I could. I replanted the beets as I went just in case I would need more later, but I began my first challenge, hunting cows. I had to kill cows for leather to make into books, which then I made into a bookshelf, then finally into a lectern, beginning the process of re-rolling the librarian for Silk Touch.
I began my assault on the pillager outpost nearly immediately, surviving for only 23 seconds. After I respawned, I beelined straight back to the outpost, only stopping to get basic resources I needed like wood. Luckily on my second go, I made it without too much struggle regathering my gear. At this point, for almost the next 45 minutes, I just kept exploring, finding a warm ocean luckily, but unfortunately, despite finding the biome, I didn't have Silk Touch yet, so the exploration continued, doing as I have done before, finding and looting villages, desert temples, even a jungle temple. All this slowly but steadily helped increase my iron stores, but alas, no Silk Touch book. So I made the difficult decision to stop my nomadic lifestyle and reroll a librarian. An incredible stroke of luck, in only 10 minutes, almost on the dot, I got a Silk Touch book.
My hunt for a Silk Touch book was not quite as quick. I lost part of the footage for how many times I re-rolled, but if we were to take into account my wooden axe, which at the time was at half health, a full stone axe, and another half of a stone axe were all destroyed in the re-rolling process, then we can calculate roughly how many times I re-rolled. The durability of a wooden axe is 60. Divide that by half equals 30. The durability of a stone axe is 130, and half of that is 66. So seeing as how I used half of a wooden axe and 1.5 stone axes, I re-rolled a whopping 228 times. This clip here summarizes my excitement.
Oh my god, Silk Touch!
But with the book gathered, I started exploring, looking for a warm ocean and iron. While I ventured out, I found a huge cave on the side of the mountain, which I decided I would explore for my iron. Gathering the iron was a bit treacherous, but generally wasn't awful. With the iron for the anvil gathered, book in hand, I make the Silk Touch pickaxe. All that's left is finding the warm ocean itself.
I had already gathered most of the ingredients, having 2 blocks of iron from my prior adventuring. So I went mining for just a few minutes, gathering the last of my iron I needed for an anvil, crafting it, and making myself a Silk Touch pickaxe. All that was left was to journey back to the warm ocean, which wasn't too hard. There I gathered my brain coral fan and completed my run in an hour, 24 minutes, and 15 seconds.
My journey to find the warm ocean was rather atrocious, as I had to cross a massive, gargantuan, ice river that spanned over 5,000 blocks between both coordinates. The journey took me like 20 minutes alone, but after disembarking from the ice, it was only about another 1,000 blocks till I found my brain coral fan. I finished my run in 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 54 seconds. And with that all done, that brings an end to our speedrunning randomized blocks. To be completely fair to Xtron, if I had put in all of our runs, which was about 13, he beat me in like 10 of them, so he's quite a bit better or luckier than me. You can find his wallpaper edits, which are pretty good if I do say so myself, at Xtron Exile, and then 5 5s, or 55555, I think, on Steam or Instagram at Xtron Arts. As for my stuff, you can find me on Twitch at TheRealSpiderEye, or you can reach out to my Instagram using the same @. So until next time, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.